Charlie Kirk is dead, and I feel sick to my stomach. I knew Charlie Kirk personally long before who he is today, long before I became a model and do the work that I do today. I actually used to work in politics, and Charlie Kirk gave me my first big girl job at a little company called Turning Point USA as their one and only Black employee. It was a different time. I first and foremost want to say that I vehemently disagree with all of Charlie Kirk's antics and philosophies and political ideologies. I do not agree with that man on anything that he's been saying on this here internet. But there was a time where I was young and, I just got this job with benefits and, like still trying to figure myself out in the world. And I was often the only Black person in a lot of white spaces. And I remember when I was in training for this job, we used to all go to dinner together and like paid by Charlie. And one night during dinner, I was sitting across the dinner table from Charlie, and like another white girl was on the table, and she decided to bring up the topic of the Confederate flag. And she was like, oh, I just feel that the Confederate flag is not racist. It's my heritage. It's my culture. And, back then I wasn't very outspoken and vocal because I felt uncomfortable in some of these very white spaces. And it was at that moment that that girl was basically trying to defend the Confederate flag that Charlie spoke up, and he said, no, the Confederate flag is racist. It was based on racism, and racism is wrong. And in that moment, I felt seen, I felt heard, I felt that I was welcomed at that table. That Charlie doing that for me made me feel like he was welcoming me a seat at the table with my difference of opinions and ideas. And my experience with Charlie Kirk, my personal experience, is that he was always kind, always a gentleman, stand-up guy. He even graciously thanked me for conversation at dinner with him and allowed me to speak freely. And that's the person that I knew, and that's what I remember about Charlie Kirk. Now, this was years ago, years before the internet, years before social media, years before this was like what it is today. It wasn't like that when I was there. But I'm really disturbed that I watched this man that I knew, that I worked with, literally get shot in the neck and his blood and guts poured out of him, and his eyes rolled in the back of his head and he slumped over. That I will never forget. That was horrible and really, really disturbing. And just to know that I was in this man's presence, eating dinner with this man, talking to this man, and he died on video, and all I did was open up this app and saw that, is very traumatic. That's very traumatic. And I can't believe that children are on this app seeing that, people are watching this. And, I just feel bad for his little girl who's gonna have to get married, walk down the aisle without her father being there, who's gonna have to go on her first date with a boy and her dad's not going to be there to vet him, who's going to go to prom and her dad's not going to be there to take pictures of her when she's at prom. I'm such a daddy's girl, and I lost my father recently, and I can't imagine the pain that, his daughter's going to go through in this life without her dad, and that makes me really sad. It makes me really sad. Sorry. I do want to say that I am scared for America, because I think that a lot of people have sacrificed their lives for us to have our freedoms and democracies that we have today. And the fact that we have freedom of speech in a lot of other places in the world doesn't have that. And, you know, it scares me because if Charlie Kirk, who's not a lawmaker, not a politician, not in a position to make or change laws, he's literally a political commentator, a social media influencer, speaking his mind. And again, I don't agree with his viewpoints at all. For him to speak his mind and get gunned down, what happens when anybody wants to speak their mind? You know, like, you know, people that don't agree with him speak their mind. They're getting gunned down too. Like, it's actually really scary. It's really, really terrifying. I just hope and pray that we get to keep our freedom of speech in America and not be afraid to be gunned down for them. You know, I want us to have the right to tell people that we disagree with them and that they're wrong without someone getting shot over it. And I'm so sorry for Charlie Kirk's children and family and everybody that knew him. And I'm sorry that I saw that video. Like, that will stay with me, you know? Yeah, that's all I have to say right now on that.